The point about this is, why should anybody trust what you say? Why should anybody think it's any more than a facade?
Why should anybody trust any politician? All of us. As simple as that, really.
It's not as simple.
Sorry, I apologise. Sorry, I apologise.
Could I just come in here? Because we've seen over the last week, and we've seen it in front of our eyes this evening, that the moment that anybody puts an uncomfortable quotation to Mr. Griffin, he says, "I didn't say that, it wasn't quite like that." Well, most of us actually seen these things on YouTube. I saw Mr. Griffin saying this on YouTube out of it. Oh, he did say. Oh, good.
I did say
out of his own mouth. But time and again, he wants to wriggle out of it. They've even published a manual. It's called the BNP Language and Concepts Discipline Manual, which starts off, rule one, the BNP is not a racist or racial party. Well, no other party has to say they're not a racist or racial party. Okay. Secondly, just 1 second,
all right.
Don't hesitate to repudiate bad aspects of the BNP's past. And this, I tell you what this reminds me of. Reminds me of Dr. Strangelove. This guy is the Dr. Strangelove of British politics.
OK. I want to go to some members of the audience. The person in the woman in the second row at the back there, please. Yes.
Hello. I'd like to hear from Mr. Griffin a little more detail on his policies of repatriation.
We'll come to that, all right? I promise you it'll be our next topic. The person there on the left with the brown pullover on. Yes?
Brown? Is green.
Green, all right.
I wonder what Mr. Griffin's venomous tongue wants to say about... because he says he's brought the British National Party away from racism. But why has it taken many years of legal action and the Equality Commission to force you to change your entrance policy from only white members?
OK. And the woman here on the right.
I'm interested to know how you define an ethnic minority when the human race is largely believed to have started in Africa. So essentially, all of us are an ethnic minority.
OK. The person in the blue shirt up there at the back. I'm just taking some comments here. The person in the blue shirt with spectacles on, yes. You, sir.
That's right. Sir Winston Churchill...
All right, he's got a white shirt. Go on, then, Farrow.
Sir Winston Churchill put everything on the line so that my ancestors wouldn't get, slaughtered in the concentration camps. But here sits a man who says that that's a myth, just like a flat world was a myth. How could you say that? How could you?
We've spent a lot of 20 minutes on that first question. There are many, many other questions and many issues to be raised, many of them centred inevitably on the BNP. And I want to take this one from Tariq Ali, please.
Why is Islam a wicked and vicious faith?
This is a quotation that you made twice, I think, about Islam. It was wicked and vicious. You confirmed it the other day. You start off. Why is it a wicked and vicious faith?
Because it treats women as second-class citizens, because it says that a woman victim of rape should be stoned to death for adultery, and because it orders its followers to be harsh with those of the unbelievers who live near to them, and it ordains as a religious duty the murder of Jews as well as other non-Muslims. That's in the Quran. There's no point shaking your head. There are good points about Islam. For instance, it opposes usury. It wouldn't have let the banks run riot in the way that the Labour Party and the Tory Party have done. There are good points, but it doesn't fit in with the fundamental values of British society: free speech, democracy and equal rights for women.
So what's your policy on Islam?
My policy on Islam is a truce with Islam. I'm not the one with the blood of 800,000 Iraqis on my hands after an illegal war, whereas Jack Straw is. I've never hurt one single Muslim. I believe that the West should stop trying to de-Islamify the Middle East and should leave those sovereign countries to run their own affairs. We shouldn't have gone into Iraq. We must never go into Iran, despite the fact that's where the Tories will take us in due course. We should leave them alone, and we should ensure that if Muslims are staying in this country, they do so on the understanding that our country must remain fundamentally a British and Christian country.
Sorry, can you just explain, if Muslims do stay in this country, what must they do?
they must acknowledge that Britain always has been and must remain, and it's right that it should remain, a fundamentally British and Christian country based on Western democratic values and not on the eternal values of the Quran.
Saeed Avasi?
From that very interesting answer, I can't work out whether he despises Muslims or he thinks they're his best friends.
I'd like to say to Nick Griffin, travelling is all about education, educating your mind, understanding things. And I'd like to know how much travelling you've done around the world, because that is one sure way of learning the true side of another culture or a religion. How much travelling have you done, Nick?
I've been a lot of the time around Europe, to the United States. I went to Libya long before members of the Labour government recently, and I said to the representatives of Gaddafi that before he should do anything else, he should stop funding the IRA, which might be why I never got to meet him.
You wanted him to fund you instead?
Yes.
I'm interested to know how you define an ethnic minority when the human race is largely believed to have started in Africa. So essentially all of us are an ethnic minority.
Okay.
Indeed, after my last video where I suggested that we should ban the misogynistic and fascist device known as the burqa, I received quite a lot of very angry emails from members of the multicultural appeasement lobby, the kind of people who'd put their own mothers and daughters in burqas to avoid being called intolerant, and who occupy such high moral ground that you can hardly see them up there through the clouds of self-righteousness. I'm talking about members of the enlightened liberal intelligentsia that has consistently shown itself to be anything but enlightened or liberal or intelligent. And I believe the BNP has a racial agenda and is therefore a racist party. So I would rather vote for nobody at all. In fact, I'd rather drive a garden fork through my own foot than vote for the BNP. Race is irrelevant. We're all one race. That's obvious to anybody with half a brain. We're all part of the same organism.